Hey, Mike, how are you?
Morning, Hans. Hey, you know me, I'm doing great as
You,
per usual.
you are doing great.
But then
So
I'm
am I.
living in beautiful Arizona,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
can't get much better than this, except maybe someplace that's a little cooler.
That's
And
true.
like
Yeah,
anywhere.
right. Yeah, right now we are in the throes of summer still, but the burr months are right ahead of us. September, October, November, and December, and then followed by a couple months uh, with vowels at the end of the name. We got several months coming up here that are going to be pretty nice. But right now, we've got something again very, very special. I am really excited. We have a special guest who I've known for a number of years. I just think the world of her and her husband. Uh, I've got all kinds of mad respect for both of them. But our people have gotten with her people, and we have finally nailed out contracts. They've been signed, and Don Wanser has agreed to do a show for K Heat Radio. It's a 27-year contract, and so, you know, we are rock solid. So, with that, Don Wanser, thank you so much for being here. You haven't said anything yet, and you've already made my day.
Well, I've got to let you say what's on your heart, my friend. Good morning, Haas and Mike. It is wonderful to be joining you, gentlemen, this
Well,
morning from
welcome, Don.
beautiful Colorado. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice and pleasant. I think we're at a pleasant 70, maybe just hitting 70 degrees
But
right
well,
now.
folks, that's all we have time for today. Don just offended me.
It's not even that cool in my refrigerator.
Yeah, no
Well, we do welcome you aboard, Don, and looking
kidding.
forward to your shows.
Yeah, actually, Don has agreed to do a couple shows for us, and I hate to call them shows because well, they're both going to be very special. But I'm going to let Don kind of take take the lead here and tell our audience what it is that you were going to be doing on KE Radio.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to you both for just even reconnecting, connected with me. I mean, it's just been so many years, and I feel like we've walked a couple of different lifetimes together, Haas, especially
We have.
with the journey. I think what I would like to do is start out with the foundational piece of who I am, and who my husband Kevin and I started let me back up just a little bit. First and foremost, our first call in ministry in life was to our two boys, Cody and Jacob. And all of this began and revolved around them, our two boys, born with a rare form of dystrophy that was not found out till later in life. But ultimately, us becoming overnight caregivers without any understanding what was happening. And so Cody was first diagnosed, it's called metachromatic leukodystrophy, in 1997. And typically with this type at that time, we were kind of dealing with a few different diagnoses because they weren't really sure what they were saying. It came down to the point, and I'm not really sure they totally, doctors do what they can, but they don't have all the answers. And that's
Correct.
okay. And we're not here to focus on that, but that started our journey to where this dystrophy works a lot like MS. It's very aggressive. And at the time, they had told us that our boy had 2 years to live, and he
Wow.
was 5 years old. And so that, as many people, I know there's many people out there that have experienced the same or had a catastrophic illness hit or injury hit, and all of a sudden life as they knew it completely flips upside down. And that's what happened with us. And of course, I wasn't willing to accept that 2-year time frame on my son's life. And so we moved forward as caregivers. It was within about a year and a half, Cody was fully wheelchair bound and nonverbal. He was mentally capable of understanding everything around him. all I can say with our Cody Bear is he just shined. If you could see, if I could explain it to you, our boys were like if you were to put a lighthouse off the ocean inside of a closet and turned it on. That was their ability to light up a room and light up every life around them. And so that was something that is something that we are forever grateful for. But going on down the road, as we, that changed my life personally and Kevin's life as well, is we went to one income, as I had to be mom caregiver at home, take care of our son, and he had to go out and figure out how am I be able to work full time and then be here for my family as well. That's a huge thing to shoulder. And
Absolutely.
but we did it. He, became a wonderful electrical contractor and started his own business so that he could be at home with his family when needed. We could go and do things. We weren't going to sit at home and just allow this illness to dictate our life. And of course, it really turned our heart to the Lord, to Lord Jesus. I mean, he, I got to tell you, we're standing here today because of him. And so, but as we went on, we had our other boy, Jacob, and in 2000. And because Cody didn't follow, Cody obviously far surpassed the 2-year time frame the doctors were giving. And so that really confused everybody. And so we had our Jacob in 2000. And around 5 years old, he ended up dropping from a grand mal seizure, stopped breathing in our living room, and I had to resuscitate him. And that's where we found out that he had the same thing as Cody. Wow. And then we pretty much determined what we were dealing with.
Wow.
And Jacob was affected pretty hard with seizure activity. So that was full-time caregiver. He was also wheelchair bound within a 1.5 years, and also given that same thing. So 23 years of our lives were full-time caregiving and just enjoying the most beautiful, precious souls that anybody could ever ask for in their life. As difficult of the circumstances that we walk through, I wouldn't change a thing. And the reason that I wouldn't is because they are in that situation, and God working in our life is why we are who we are today. If you can stop for a moment, even the situations, and try to look at the bigger picture, God sees the bigger picture. He sees that whole 360-degree panoramic view of our life where we can only sometimes see what's in front of us. And so, as I walked the journey as a caregiver, there were a lot of perspectives that you can either embrace and know that this is completely out of your hands and you can embrace it and make the best of it, or you can turn and run the other direction and make it very, very difficult to maneuver through. It's when you have your life, we're all, you have dreams for your life, you have dreams for your children, you have dreams for your family. You suddenly are come to the realization that you are not in control of your life. And there are things that are going to happen that are completely out of your hands, even when you're walking with the Lord, that happens. But there's a different understanding that comes into play when you have Jesus in your life. And so one of the things as I was developing, and the Lord was working with me and Kevin in our faith and holding us so tightly together, we would go on trips and special things. And of course, Make-A-Wish was a big blessing for both Cody and Jacob. And it was in 2008 when we took a trip for Cody. Prior to that, and then later on we took one for Jacob, and it was on the trip for Jacob that I remember this, and if I can explain it, and I'm building you up to so that people can understand why I'm here and what I'm doing today. So this is all part
Thank
of it.
you.
There's a lot more to it, but I want to try to get there in a summarized way. But we were on the Make-A-Wish for Jacob, the trip, and we were out in Kissimmee, Florida, a place called Give Kids the World. It's amazing. If you never heard of it, I would encourage you to look at it. But Give Kids the World is like a village that is made for the gentleman that designed it, came from Germany. His family survived Holocaust. And he literally built a village. The houses are built like mushrooms. It's like you walk into cartoon land. And everything that any child that is ill or special needs could ever want to do is right there on site. He's absolutely incredible. They have a huge cafeteria out there. And so what came to me the day I was sitting outside, just had to take a breather. I'd stepped outside. We had my dad and, grandparents with us and all on the trip, which was amazing. But I took a moment outside and I remember sitting up, my back up against the wall, sat down on the ground on the outside and was just taking a breath. And this is how I can explain it. God spoke to me. All I could hear was, "Do you see them?" And I said, "See who?" And, it's not an audible voice. It's just that internal, "Do you see them?" And I, of course, in my prayer moment there, I said, "Lord, I see who?" And he said, "The caregivers, the moms, the dads, the siblings, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, whoever might be around. Do you see them?" "Well, of course I see them." No, do you really see them? And what they're feeling. Of course, it was almost like if you were to take a telescope and or a microscope and just hone in on the caregiver. Do you see them? They're tired. They're scared. They're exhausted. They're sad. They're trying to be extremely strong. They're broken. And it was like, that's all I saw, was that I could see how they were feeling and how they were, it wasn't who they were caring for, it was the caregiver. And I said, "Well, yeah, Lord, I see that, I see that." And I said, "Who takes care of them?" And he said to me very strongly in my heart, "You do." And that is where the nonprofit A Caretaker's Wish originated from. A Caretaker's Wish is a nonprofit and a ministry that I wanted to begin in bringing support to people that are to caregivers themselves, and it extends to their entire family, of course. But there's all these programs, as there should be, for special needs, illnesses, there's all kinds of services. But what we don't see is the caregivers that are behind closed doors. They never ask for help. They never speak about their situation. They are there shouldering, because you're really allowing the person that you're caring for to live through you. You're being that strength for them. You're being that rock for them to know you're giving them a reason to survive. And so how is it that you can be the one that has to ask for help or have your needs met because you just don't think about it? And so what I wanted to do was provide an organization that brought in all kinds of support to let caregivers know that somebody recognizes what they do, that it's important that their needs are met, because if their needs aren't met, how are they going to meet the needs of the one they're caring for? To bring them, and for some people, it's such a customized thing. It's not a cookie cutter structure. Every, nonprofits and different things, they have a specific mission that they focus on every day. Well, this is a bit of a challenge because it's not like that. You can put different programs in, which we do, but it's more so of going to that caregiver and saying, what is going to make your life better? And I will use an example of a single mama who her son, she was single mom caring for her boy with very extensive medical needs. And when I went to her and asked her, what kind of needs do you have? I mean, they look at you like a deer in headlights because they don't think about it.
Right.
And so, you come back to me, you think about it. And so she did. And she said, nobody's ever asked me that. She's asked what my son has needed, but nobody's ever asked me what I needed or if there was something that I could do. Well, she is a writer. She loved to write. She loved to do all kinds of things. And since, literally she would sit on the floor with her son next to her, and he was tube fed and everything. I mean, he had tubes for everything to survive, to live. And she said, I would have him sit next to me and I would just sit there and write on the floor with him. So we went to work and we fundraised and we put together a whole home office, home furniture, computer, and some furniture where she could set her son next to her and finish her education. And that, and sadly, her son did pass, but she was able to go forward because of that education and completing that to continue on doing what she's doing today.
Wow.
And so a caretaker's wish is to meet the customary needs of caregivers. And so that was developed and created and put together in 2008. And we've had it through our entire journey. And partly what, as we would do different fundraisers and things, and we do Thanksgiving programs and Adopt a Caregiver Christmas, where we adopt the caregiver and their whole family and bring Christmas to them. Literally, we would bring Christmas carolers or Santa to their house, or whatever it was that made the difference for them. So we're still working on that.
God bless you for that.
Oh, I'll tell you what, we are blessed. And I tell you, and I say this sincerely, Cody and Jacob, yes, caregiver, yes, taking care of them, but ultimately they really took care of us. And caregivers, when we go in and we, it just brings a life to our heart and a light to our heart that we're able to reach these families. I couldn't be more blessed to have this mission and to move forward with it. And so as we did that, we've done different things. And then in 2013, our Cody went on to be with the Lord, which, I don't care what you're dealing with. You're never prepared for that.
No.
And you can try to prepare, you can try to know, and you pray that it never comes. But the reality is that, as you're looking at the situation, deep down at some point it's coming. And there's nothing that you can do to change it. You can do everything you can to fight it. But when that moment happens, it's something that it alters you entirely.
Yeah.
And, I'm thankful that I was there right there with him. And, it made sense that, I carried him in this world and I'll hand him over to the arms of Jesus. And that's what I did. And it's a tough, there's no words for that.
No, there's not.
And so then 2 years later, Jakey went to be with Jesus. And so within a 2-year span, we lost them both, and they had to go back home.
Yeah.
And we literally had to just stop the brakes on everything. And I experienced another side of caregiving that you don't even think about because you're in survival mode. And that is, you are day in, day out, 24/7, living, breathing, walking a caregiving situation and living for another. Then when that person goes on, just as the light switch turned on and turned off when you had your first experience with becoming a caregiver, it happens again. because everything that you've been doing day in and day out suddenly stops. Everything that you do on a daily basis stops, and it's dead silent. And that is an experience that there is no description of words that can have you be ready for that. And one of the things that we experienced was struggling, because a lot of caregivers, they're when you come to that process of life, when their care is so extensive, you're at home, you can't connect to a church, you cannot, you can connect, but you're at home, you're surrounded by medical situations and you're just not plugged in. And one of the things that we ran into with Jacob, and I'm not going to mention any names on this, but I'm just going to help people to understand this is why we do what we do. We reached out to a church that we were going to help us with the service for our Jacob, and they turned us away because we hadn't been attending.
What?
Oh, no.
And so we were left scrambling, trying to find a place to honor our son.
Actually turned you away.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom that.
And like I said, it's not appropriate or it's irrelevant to mention any names or a situation, but I know that if I experience this, that someone else has. And it really stopped us in our tracks and we went, wow. And I was very blessed. I did find a church. I reached out and they came in full circle and embraced us and helped us. But to be left not only grieving the loss of your son, but, both of them not even having time to really breathe in between, and then being faced with that when you are crying out to God in the situation and someone that is supposed to be his hands and feet isn't there. You can do one of two things. You can shake your fist at God, turn the other way, and really turn against your faith, or you can run deeper into him. And for me, it was, this is not the Jesus I know.
Yeah.
Right.
And I saw the side of, and my husband can tell you, I literally just lost my mind. What I was going to do, I kept it together. The Lord kept me together, but what was I to do with myself? Where was I supposed to go? What was I supposed to do? I don't even know. I've spent half my life helping my children survive, taking care of my family. Now what? And so it was, I went from, I started delivering flat because I thought I can't be sitting in an office environment. Mind you, I'm still grieving. And so one of the things I was very thankful for is because I went and got my CNA, which is a certified nursing assistant, I was able to, the home health agency that I was working through to help take care of my sons, they said they had me as an employee, and they would pay me to take care because they would have to pay somebody. And that's a whole thing that I will get into at a later time. But they enabled me to take some unemployment for a time, and they didn't contest it, which was beautiful. And
absolutely.
But it was 6 months, and that's, that goes by, how fast 6 months goes by. Here we are, August, right?
Exactly right.
And so at any rate, I had, I only had a short amount of time that I had to figure out what in the world I was going to do. And so I literally for, almost 2 years, just, I went from delivering flowers to delivering luggage to, I even did medical transport and realized I couldn't get back into the medical side of things because it was just too real at that moment in my grief. And so I couldn't do those things. And I came home one day and told my husband, I said, I'm going to drive a taxi. And he said, are you out of your mind? You are not going to drive a taxi. What is wrong with you? And I said, well, I just, I'm something, because I knew I couldn't be like, I wasn't a person to be in an office setting. I'm not an office person. I am too outgoing for that. And I just couldn't be, I had to be able where if I had to take a minute to breathe, I could breathe. So my thought process was, I just get where I could be driving somewhere, and if I needed to take a moment, I could, but my hubby wouldn't have it. He said, if you go and do this, I'm going to tell your dad. You can't tell my dad. He said, yes, I can. I can tell your dad. I'm like, oh dear. My husband, Kevin, he is so wonderful, and he is such a big part of my life and so important to me. And, he came to me, just a wonderful man. And he said, you know what? He said, here's what I need you to do. You started a Caretaker's Wish. We've got this thing going on. There's something that God has called you to do. And I need you to just stop. Stop what you're doing and just breathe. We're okay financially right now. We have jobs coming. I just need you to stop and just really think about what you're doing, and bless that beautiful man. That was the best thing he did for me. One of the best things. He enabled me. He saw that, she really has had no opportunity to even think about her life because she's been so busy taking care of her boys and me and, all of that she's just never really had a chance to think about what she's supposed to be doing. And so it was one day that in 2017 that I was looking out of all places. You guys are familiar with Craigslist.
Oh, sure.
And out of all places, there's a church advertising on Craigslist, which I've had virtually no, credentials on anything because I've been caregiver. Well, I had good credentials, but, in my mind, I'm thinking, no, I don't have a degree. I don't have this or the other thing. And so they were looking for pastoral care, congregational care. And, I read the ad, and it was everything that I'd done through a Caretaker's Wish through my family. And I thought, we need to check this out. And so in June of 2017, I wrote him a letter, said, here I am. I haven't been to school. I don't have a degree, but I know how to take care of people. That's one thing I do know how to do. And it was interesting. At the end of June, out of all days, June 29th was when Jakey passed away. And on June 29th, they called me in for an interview.
Wow.
In 2017.
Wow.
And I said, oh, I don't know if I can do it. God said, you're going to go do it. I'm going to push you. And so I remember driving up, and it was a church in Genesee, Colorado. And I was sitting in the parking lot, and I said, God, I don't know what I'm doing. He said, that's okay. I do. At least somebody does. And he said, just tell him your story. Tell them your story. Okay. So I go in, and the amazing thing was I had been on an interview over 25 years. I've gone and did other, but this interview, what I wasn't anticipating was I had met with the associate pastor and Pastor Ed. I will be forever grateful for that man, because he really spoke into my life and enhanced what I knew God was calling me to do. And I walk into a room, and next thing you know, a board of about 9 people walked into this room.
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking, oh boy, oh dear Jesus, I'm out.
Yeah, really.
I don't think I can do this. And it was amazing. And I'll tell you, God's intervention in that situation was this. I'm looking around all these people, and I'm thinking, and each one of them had a big old, notepad and pen ready to take all kinds of notes, questions written down. all kinds of things. And I remember Pastor Ed, he leaned over because he was sitting in front of me in the table, and he leaned over, he said, "Do me a favor. Just tell me your story." And I sat there and I thought about what God said to me in the parking lot. Just tell him your story. And so that's what I did. And by the time I got done, I looked over and not one pin had been lifted. Nobody was able to write a thing. And everybody was passing the Kleenex box.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I was hired on as a care pastor, and I worked there doing congregational care. What I didn't know is that they were going to require me to run memorial services. Now, for someone who has walked through what I had just walked through in a very short amount of time, I thought, there's no way. And the only way that I can explain it to you is that, you know how a musician will get up on stage and it's like they flip a switch.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're able to do what they do. God flipped the switch in me when it came to, and it was like maybe the second or third service that I did, and a young man, 16 years old, had committed suicide.
Huh.
And I thought, I got to help this family. And they called in the situation, nowhere to go, no connection. They called us, and I went to them and I said, they're not members of this church, but I don't care. We are opening this door to this building and we are doing this service, and I don't want to hear a no about it.
Good for you.
And we did it. And what I saw was that it's not me, but God's gift that he works through me, that I have the ability to flip that switch when the bottom falls out, and I can be that rock for people. So I found that in that position. And I ended up knowing that I was called to full-time ministry. And there's a journey there, but that leads me to where I was doing a caretaker's wish. We had kind of shut down for a little bit so that God could work in my life. Realized that's always been there, and it's always been a ministry and always will be that he's given us. But something would happen when we would travel, and I'd see an old country church, and I'd just look at Kevin and be like, "Oh man, I want one of those." He would look at me like, that poor boy, he didn't realize he was marrying somebody with a kite tail. I mean, he's got to ring this girl in at times. Bless that man's heart. But he would just kind of smile and chuckle. And so, long story short, we moved up the mountains of Bailey, Colorado, and down close by in a little town, there was an old country church that just sat just a few years ago. We've been working on this process about a year now. And Kevin ended up getting an electrical job right next to this church. And the church building, and of course we never saw any activity. There was a sign up there, but there was never any activity. So anyway, I asked the neighbors, and they said, we really don't know what's going on. There's nobody been around. And of course, this was all around the COVID time, so a lot of churches were, closed down, and, minimal activity was going on at the time. But, we went back again a few months later, and the sign was down. And it just really, that every time I drove by there, I was just drawn to this little church. Actually, it's not little, it's good size. But this is nothing short of a miracle. I started praying about it, and I started trying to research it, and it was really interesting because the building just kind of existed. And in the assessor's office, it's held by an entity, but there's no one to contact. No one to contact.
Wow.
I thought, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I said, well, Lord, what do I do? And it just, I want you to write a letter. So I thought, okay, I'll type up a letter. I went and got ordained. I'm a senior ordained chaplain through the International Fellowship of Chaplains out of Texas. I got my chaplaincy. I got all that. And didn't really realize what I was doing it for. And then, of course, we saw this church, and So I was going to type up this letter and tell him, here's where I've done pastoral care. Just, kind of interested in your building, too. Maybe this is something we could run a caretaker's wish out of, or, I'm thinking rent it or something. And so I went to type up the letter, and God stopped me. He said, "No, I want you to handwrite that letter." I said, "Okay, handwrite it." He said, "Yeah, because they're going to see your heart in your handwriting."
Oh boy.
And so I put together a little handwritten letter, and I put my little card in there. And this was at the end of June of last year. And I said, "Okay, I'm going to go down." Of course, I'll get it there. I'll get it there. And finally, one day, the Lord said, "You better do it, and you better do it right now." So I'm running up the stairs to Kevin. I said, "I need you to take me to that church. I need you to take me right now." I said, "God's not going to leave me alone until I do this." He said, "Okay." So he drove me down, and I went and stuck inside the sanctuary doors, inside because they didn't have a mailbox. I stuck it in my little card in this note inside the door. And all I can say to you gentlemen is that it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I did what God told me to do. It's in your hands. I didn't have any idea what was going to come of it. And so at any rate, about 3 weeks later, I get a phone call. And it's the caretakers of the building. She said, "We found the sweetest little note in our door." And she said, she goes, "It had rain droplets on it, but we could still read what it was saying. And then your card had blown out, and my husband was mowing, and it was sitting right in front of him in a thing of weeds." And he said, "Well, what's this?" And she goes, "I think that's the card that goes with the letter."
Wow.
So, we ended up meeting, and nothing short of a miracle. God worked. There's just no words. It is a miracle. We obtained this building. I explained to them what we were doing. And now we have chapel at Pine Grove. Just officially got formed. Actually, we just closed on the building in March through the grace of God. Just an absolute miracle. There's no way that my husband will tell you that if you would have told me we're going to own a church, I would have told you were nuts. Because there's just no way that this should have happened. So anyway, we now have chapel at Pine Grove that has offices for a caretaker's wish inside. We have a chapel that we can provide not only services, but also services to any caregiver, their families. Ultimately, we're going to start a program that will fund funeral services for them, so they're not scrambling trying to find a way. You're on a one income, you don't have funds for that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
I can run the memorial service for them as a chaplain, and we can be there to carry now from when they start becoming a caregiver, from when it stops and beyond, because we'll be there to tell them it's going to be okay and walk that part with them. So a caretaker's wish chapel at Pine Grove is an all for caregivers and families, but for reaching out. And I got to tell you that chapel at Pine Grove is this: we stand on the word of God, we bring them to Jesus without compromise. Without compromising the word of God, we stand on those biblical truths, and we do not waver from that. But we are here to bring people to the one who held us and is holding us strong today. And without Jesus, we wouldn't be where we are at all.
Well, I can feel the faith through you. I feel the strength through you. And Kevin, and your boys. I'm just blown away by this wonderful story. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me tell it. And I hope through Chapel at Pine Grove that we will be doing weekly messages on biblical truths, and with the caretaker's wish to reach out, bring encouragement to caregivers and their families, providing resources. But, everybody has that story to tell in a caregiver situation or a testimony of where God has worked in their life. And we want to be that outlet because we need to hear these things. And when we hear enough of the other gunk that goes on in the world, we really need to, regardless of what goes on in this world, God has not fallen off his throne. He's still sitting there. He's still in control, and he still wants to bless you.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Regardless of what trials and tribulations you're walking through, he's not done with you. No matter where you're at, he's not done with you. And I hope to bring that light to people so that they can be encouraged and take up the mantle that God has for them and walk in his light. So that's what we're working on doing, and we'll develop this as we go, and we'll just but to him be the glory. It's him, it's God himself. And so you guys are amazing. Thank you for I could go on for hours, but I'm not gonna do that.
And we hope you do.
Well,
We're here.
you got 27 years of shows to do, so
That's wonderful.
oh man, I tell you, I'm at a loss for words. I really am, and I knew the story, but to hear it again, it's an amazing story, and what makes it even more amazing is how you and Kevin have felt blessed by it. I think the tendency might be to, why me? What did I do wrong? Why do I have to do this?
Right.
But I never saw that in you. And no, and in Kevin, this is going to sound sexist because it is, but I mean, Mike, how many guys would have walked this walk?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it too often where I'm out of here. You're on your own.
Yeah.
That's
And my wife has a niece who has walked a very similar journey that you have done.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband, dad of her boy, bailed on her a long time ago, and she's been doing it all by herself. And he just recently passed. He lived 14 years. And I see that, and the whole time I saw you. I thought of you, and I thought, you know what? I know what this lady is going through because I've watched you go through it.
Yeah.
And I feel, and I know Mike feels, we are so blessed to have you share your stories because there's more, I know, but to share your stories on K-Heat Radio. And I'm going to make sure that we do everything we can to honor that and honor you and honor Kevin. And hopefully we can get Kevin on a show or two. People need to see who this guy is. Two of the most amazing people that I've ever met are you and Kevin. And again, totally blessed. And you're the reason
Absolutely.
that Mike and I do stuff like this. So thank you.
Thank you both. You guys are amazing, and I know good things will come. So blessings on both of you, and
thank you,
Godspeed, my friends.
Well, in the meantime, I want the listeners, if you want to know more about Dawn and what she's doing, what Kevin's doing, you can go to our website. I believe there's a link there to get to Dawn's website, or if there's not, there will be. And get involved. Listen to her stories. Listen to God's message as she shares it with all of us. And if you feel like you can be a part of it and help Dawn and Kevin financially, we encourage you to do that. Great way to spend your money, I'll tell you, because it's going to go to such a worthy cause. And again, I'm rambling now just because I'm totally at a loss, and I've never been at a loss for words. But we're going to do this every week. Hopefully, we're going to have a couple shows coming at you. One talking about the chapel at Pine Grove is going to be on Sundays, and A Caretaker's Wish probably will also air on Sunday, and then probably a couple times throughout the week. We've got some space that we have available, and we're going to plug it in. We want to make sure that everybody can hear the show. You can always come to our website. You can go to our YouTube channel, and you can watch it. But boy, there won't be anybody that can say, you know what, I didn't know how to watch or listen to the show. We're going to give you all kinds of
That's
opportunity because these people are the real deal. And I'm just thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So with that, Mike, I'm out of words, brother.
Well,
This is a
that's a rarity.
I know.
It's extremely rare for us to be out of words.
I know.
However, I just want to say one thing that, you've left me with a thought here, Dawn.
Mhm.
How many times have we been troubled and sat down? God spoke to us, but we never heard him.
Yeah.
That's right.
How many times?
Many times.
That's something I'm going to think about for a long time, because there's times I could have certainly used some help,
Right.
but why? Maybe I did hear him. I didn't recognize it. That's on me.
Well,
It's not on him.
yeah, and that's happened to all of us. I mean, I had that with my cancer journey. Fortunately, something happened to me that made me aware of what was going on, and almost an out of body experience. But it made me tune in, and as a result, I've got a whole bunch of God stories that I hope to share with everybody, because I'm thankful that he got my attention and I paid attention to it, because prior to that I wasn't paying attention, and I'm thinking it's probably why I got cancer. He had to get my attention. You're not listening to me, so you get smacked up the side of the head a little bit. I'll get you through this, but you're going to pay attention. And my eyes are open. I'm paying attention, and I think that's what has led me to this. Uh, Mike and I have spent most of this week recording shows of new show hosts that are getting ready to launch with us, and every show we've done has just gotten better and better and better.
Mhm.
And Dawn's the last show that we're recording this week, and I feel
Thank you
like,
for leaving us with this wonderful show.
oh yeah,
Oh,
absolutely,
goodness.
yeah.
Wow.
well, one thing I want to say, there's a scripture that comes to mind, and where he says that what the devil means for our harm, he turns it for our good. And even though we might let go or figure out, maybe we think that we haven't hurt him or we let go of his hand, he never lets go of us. And he's faithful to pull us full circle. And where you are today is through his direction. And when you put your trust in him, no matter whether you think you've missed it or not, God's timing is perfect. And I always tell people the best thing you can do is move in God's tempo, and God's tempo is his heartbeat. And as long as you tap in, and any music person or radio person or understands what it means when God's tempo, sometimes his tempo moves a little bit quickly, sometimes it moves way slow. But you tap into God's heartbeat, you won't miss. Even though you may think, well, did I hear him? Did I not hear him? Listen, when we put our trust in him, he is faithful to get us right where we need to be, and in his perfect timing. And it isn't that we've missed it or we were right on sometimes, but we are where we are with the direction of his hand. So it causes us to move closer to him. And it's like a child when they rest their head on the chest of a parent. That most comforting sound is that heartbeat.
Yeah.
And that's our Father's heart.
Yeah.
And as long as we tap into that, we're right where we need to be, no matter what's going on. So I'll leave you with that too.
Well, thank you, Dawn. Wow.
Absolutely. Wow. I think we're done with this show, but it's just the start of some really special things. Uh, we're very blessed to have Don. We're very blessed to have all of these show hosts. Um, and one thing I want to do is get our show hosts to know each other because there's a connection with everybody. And it's amazing how they've all come together with perfect timing. That wasn't me. That wasn't Mike.
We could have a barbecue, but
Yeah.
everybody would have to come to Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come visit. Absolutely.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Well, I wouldn't invite you this month.
Yeah.
Get into the Burr months, and then absolutely. Then when you got 3 feet of snow up there, we'll have a place for you down here, and you go, wow, this is great.
Yeah,
So
75 and sunny.
yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Anyway, Don, thank you so much. I'll look forward to continuing with all of this. Mike, it's been more than a pleasure today. And audience, don't be afraid to share this information with your family and friends.
Yeah.
Have them tune in and get involved with Don's show, with all the shows, because there's some really good ones, I promise you. And if you don't like them, we will double your money back that you have spent to listen. Yeah, figure that one out. Means that it costs you nothing. But anyway, you're going to get
Well, we'll double it.
We'll double it. Absolutely. Anyway, Don, Mike, thank you again. I hope everybody has a blessed week. We'll see you next time.
On kheatradio.com.
.com. We did it.
We did it.
See ya.